Bibles, if you would, to Genesis 37 this morning. And right after the service, we'll be going upstairs with a 29-minute ticker in which there'll be a totally different class. We'll do it in about 25 minutes class. We'll do this probably four Sundays until we finish the life of Joseph. But why not Joseph in the righteous line? I mean, why did God not choose Joseph for Jesus to come from? And so we'll answer that in the 29-minute ticker upstairs. When I was a small boy in grade school, one afternoon, the superintendent of the school, it was a small school, but came on the intercom. And his voice was shaking, and you could tell something was wrong. And he said to all the students that President Kennedy had just been shot. And I remember sitting there in the little desk, and I put my head down and cried, as all the other students did and our teacher did. And then our teacher gathered us all together, and we had prayer. That teacher led us in prayer. I will never forget that. It was a different country and a different time in which we didn't care and didn't know a lot of things. And I'm thinking that was a blessing growing up. 4 years later, on an afternoon, I walked in and I saw that in Los Angeles, his brother Robert Kennedy had just been killed. And I sat down and wept again. It's just so tragic when a nation feels like this. And already the proponents of this should have been, this shouldn't be, this, and if I were you, I would just simply stay off your phones and cell phones and your social medias, and because there's going to be so much back and forth. The truth of this is there is evil in this world that is so evil we had no idea how evil it actually is, and we still don't know the depths of it. And there is good and righteousness, and the only thing that we can do is continue to be faithful to the Lord in everything that He does. Little song Jalen was singing, goodbye is not the end of this thing. He said, go tell the world about me. That's our job, and that's our love, and it's what we do. And if you're a guest with us here this morning, we trust that you'll enjoy not only the message, but the heart of our people here. Esau had it all. I mean, he had it all. This guy, and you think, Jacob stole his blessing, so he didn't get anything. Oh, no. At this point in their life, he's much richer than Jacob ever thought about being. He has lands. He had so much land it was bigger than some small states. He had huge herds. He was filthy rich. He had everything except the covenant blessing of God. He did not have that. And so as we look in chapter 37, in fact, if you look in 36, there's 43 verses there, and there are more than 75 names. It talks about the family of Esau. And for some reason, it goes into this genealogy, and there are more than 70 or so names that are listed there in the genealogy. And when you start 37, it talks about Jacob's. And now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger. His father, Isaac, of course, never made it this far. Every generation is supposed to make it farther than the last generation. Daddy never did get inside of this spot that Jacob is now in, where his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. And again, 43 verses on the history of Esau. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. Now, who in the world are those? Those are his half-brothers. In some sort of an attempt to help God along in the promise of raising a great nation of where the sands of the sea and the stars of the sky could not contain them, Bilhah was given to Jacob by his wife Rachel because she couldn't have children. She needed to have the progeny growing, and so she said, here, you have children. And Dan and Naphtali was there in the field. Jacob and Zilpah, the same thing. Leah had already had 4 boys. I think she'd had Reuben and Simeon and Levi and Judah. And she said, here, Zilpah, you start having children. I can tell you, this is the most dysfunctional family that you will ever meet on the planet. And so that was Gad and Asher. So in verse 2, the history of Jacob, all we're going to hear about is that the half-brother Joseph was out there with Dan and Naphtali and Gad and Asher. Now what goes on, and they were feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report to them for his father. And verse 4, but when his brothers saw that the father loved him more than all of his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. And there was a reason why. And it's verse 3, Israel loved Joseph more. And he gave him the coat of many colors. We'll look at the coat in just a moment, but let's talk about the first thing we want to share about this thing, and that is there's a special person inside of you. A special person inside of every one of you. A special person inside you. Joseph was special, and his dad treated him special. He was the child of his old age. And it was bad enough that he would send him out to the fields. There were three things that I see about Joseph in this. First, he's a special person in his commitment. His commitment was to go out with the brothers. And also, Dad had said, you watch these boys. And he brings back a bad report. I don't know what it is, and no one else does. It's not listed in Scripture. What were they up to? What were they doing? I don't think they were wrestling or anything like that. I think it was illegal behavior. I think they were stealing sheep, killing sheep, or doing something illegally. And so he tells Dad what's going on. Now that makes it bad enough to have the family snitch. But his commitment was to his father. His character was, this is wrong, and I'm telling Dad. And so it made him unique and special in a way that was very unspecial to them. Also, his clothing was special in that his dad took him out and put this beautiful coat of many colors. It symbolizes, the coat does, all of God's favor. It symbolizes all of God's divine grace and power that he's giving to him. Now, and the coat of many colors, it's never defined of how many colors there were or what it actually means, but it does have some suggestions that we'll look at because it represents all of God's divine favor. What Israel, Jacob, was doing is he placed the coat on him and said, I am giving you all of my divine favor. Now, how do you get to a point where you get to wear the jacket? Before we come to Jesus Christ, we are lost in sin. Romans 3:23 says that we've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. We're all sinners. How do we get to wear the coat of God's favor? And it's if we take the five basic colors, the white represents purity. Blessed are the pure in heart, said Matthew. Green represents life and growing. Gold represents the healing and the feet of gold and the liquid fire that comes down. Blue or purple, royal, talks about the miracles. And the tabernacle had these four colors. Solomon's temple had these four colors in it. And so these colors are representing, I think, two things. First, it's the coat of suffering. He doesn't know that he's putting on a coat of suffering. He thinks he's putting on a coat of superiority. I'm giving you this with all my divine blessings. But it became a coat of suffering for this young boy. He lost the coat and he lost the divine favor of God through his life. Then there's the coat of the Savior. When Jesus Christ came to us, he came as the Son of God. And he presented to us and gave to us everything that allows us to have the divine favor of God. So we get to wear the glorious coat of many colors today because of the finished work of Jesus Christ. So this coat thing, this idea in verse 3, it just ticked the brothers off. And these are all half-brothers. And in the 29-minute ticker, we'll go a little bit deeper into that and why Joseph was not chosen as. Because look at him, all this character that he has. He did everything right, and yet he was not chosen to be the righteous line. But we are all called with a special purpose, every one of us. If there's anything today that our children need to hear is that you have someone special inside of you. You are special because of who you are. There's a little thing called deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. In 1956, two scientists discovered more of what a Swiss chemist had discovered in 1881, that in all of our bodies there is about a 6-foot-long staircase wrapped in DNA. And it wasn't until 1981 that the first case ever went to court by which someone was proved innocent because of DNA, because up until that time, what is it? I was reading this week about scientists explaining DNA, and they said, well, the first DNA came about 400 billion years ago. That's where DNA started. And they said we have discovered that in about 100 billion years ago that they can find it from the woolly mammoth, that there is a DNA. I'm going to tell you something. Everything that God has created has DNA. Everything that He has made has design and order. There's someone special inside of every one of you. Boys and girls and children and teenagers are looking desperately to find a way to fit in, to plug in, to be called part of something. And here's the dangerous thing, because if you want to be accepted today, you have to do it through popularity. If you can become popular, if you can become the star, if you become the star player, if you're the jock, if you can do flips better than the rest of the cheerleaders, you become popular by fitting in. And I'm telling you that as a child of God, wearing the coat of many colors, the favor of God, you ain't going to fit into this world. It will never happen. It's the wrong key into the wrong lock. And so while we understand, hey, Joseph, there's something special in you. There's something special in every one of you today. Psalm 139 says that we are fearfully and wonderfully created. Everyone, the people that you don't agree with. Already I've seen posts from people that saying they were bad shots and wish they'd have done this. This is the type of sickness that has taken us to the place where we're not happy with anything or anybody or any situation. We're not a pleased people because we are a spoiled to death people who believe that we ought to have everything that we want. We ought to have it right now. And so when we look at this coat of many colors put on in front of the other brothers, imagine being Reuben or Simeon or Levi or Gad or Naphtali, all the weird name boys that they gave them. But the son of promise was Joseph. And so imagine standing here watching this. Well, thanks, Dad. Okay, where's my coat? Because the failure of the father here is to fail to recognize that every one of those boys had someone special inside of them. And so Psalm 30 or Genesis 37 begins with, hey, Joseph, there is someone special in you. Everyone that you disagree with, argue with, or regardless of how dark it is in your life at the moment, regardless of how many critics you may have at the moment, regardless of how bad it is, you have to understand and always be aware of the promise of the coat of colors that you wear in Christ, that there is someone special in you. When a small voice like Jalen sings, or the children downstairs, or the oldest voice sings in the back, it doesn't matter the age or the name. It matters that they matter. Everyone matters because they are special. You say, I don't treat everyone special. And maybe I don't either, but we sure ought to, because God has made them just as unique. We were helping once when, if you'll remember, about 8 years ago, when the Syrian civil war broke out, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and Syrian refugees were over 1 million on the borders, and so we took up funds and we started helping them. A guy comes to me and he says, I'm grateful that you're doing this, and we raised like $20,000 to help in these refugee camps. And he said, I just have one thing to say. You do realize these are Muslim people, right? And I looked at him, and I know it was a strange look. And I said, what difference does that make? He said, they're our enemies. I said, they're children. They're children starving to death in refugee camps with nowhere to go, nowhere to run. See, if that is the mentality of church life, they're our enemies. We forget the very foundation that Jesus has created every one of us, and He loves us all. I know that because of John 3:16, that He loves us. There's someone special. So every time you're in a life conflict with another person, look at that person and understand and realize that God made them, and there's someone special inside of there as well. He said, but they're not as smart as me. Or they're just complicated. They're hard. They're different. I understand that. We can't all be geniuses like you. But there's something special in every one of us because we are made in the image of God. There was an evangelist, a beautiful story of about 35 years ago. His wife died. He always traveled, well known. He had 2 boys. And he had a lady that kept his boys all week, and he would usually make it home a couple of days and then back out on the road. But he forgot, and he always brought them a gift, but he forgot to bring their gift this time. And so the boy said, "What'd you bring us, Daddy?" He said, "Well, I forgot. Let's just go to the store." So they went to the store, and he said, "Let's just shop." So the 2 boys started shopping. The first thing they saw was candy department. They each grabbed their favorite candy and said, "Can we have this, Daddy?" He said, "Well, let's shop around a little." They shopped around a little bit and went a little bit further. And as they did, they went to the toy department, and there was some cap pistols. You remember the cap pistols, a little plastic belt, a little hat? And they both grabbed that and said, "Can we have this, Daddy?" He said, "Well, let's just shop a little more." They went a little further into the sporting goods. They looked, and there was basketballs. They're each bouncing a basket. "Can we have the ball, Daddy?" "Well, let's shop a little more." Okay, and they put the balls in, and he led them back to this back wall where there hung 2 bicycles. The boys' eyes lit up, and they said, "Daddy." And he said, "How would you boys like to have those bikes?" And he put them down, and he got them the bikes, and out the door they go. The moral of the story from that great evangelist was this: he planned on buying them the bikes all along. Oftentimes we, as children of God, wearing the coat of many colors with all the favor of God, we take the first little thing that we see, the little candy bag, when he has something far greater for you, if you can just wait. There's something special in every one of you. Verse 5. Not only is there someone special inside of you, but there's a special plan for you. Verse 5. Now Joseph had a dream. And this is where the coat of many colors was bad enough, but now he's got a dream. In verse 5, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even the more. So he said to them, "Please hear the dream which I have dreamed." And there we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaves. And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more. 3rd time, hate, hater, hatest. There is a special plan for you. Every one of us has a plan of God. Where would we be if we did not have? How would you like to live your entire life and know that there was no plan for you, that you are on your own, and that when you die, you're just dead? What a life that would be to live. There is a special plan for you. You say, "Well, he's sold into slavery." God's plan. He was sitting in a prison. God's plan. God has a plan, but what if he didn't? But he does. There is a special plan for you. Do you believe that? Because if you believe that there's something special in you, you've also got to understand that God has a plan for you. Now there's a beautiful ugliness here in every one of us. We know that there's a plan, that the Father has a plan, and inside of this plan may be some dark days. It may be some difficult circumstances. It may be some times by which you hate someone that's part of this plan. Happened to Joseph 5 different occasions. But inside of this, God has a plan for me. Jeremiah 29:11, I know that God has a plan for me. But inside of this plan consists things that you won't like, I promise you. But wearing a coat of many colors, favored here because of the work of Christ that is finished, we are able to say we are wearing the colors of the Son, accepted because of this plan he now has for me. And I get up every morning believing that there is a plan of God for my life. I don't get up every morning trying to figure it out. A man asked me last night, during the singing, he said, "I want you to pray that I will know God's will." And I didn't have the conversation there. It wasn't the time or place. I just said, "Okay, let's pray. I'll pray that you know God's will." But listen, when that prayer is over, I have no more clue of God's will for his life than I did before the prayer. Why? Because it's not in my plan. I do not know. I have no idea what God's plan is for you. Most days, I'm not sure of what it even is for me. I just follow and walk and pray that I'm in the will of God every day of my life. There is a special plan for you. So verse 5 says that when he starts off on this dreaming idea, they hate it even more. Now, there's a problem, God, in the ugliness of God's plan for you is when you go to someone else and say, and pastors get together, the first thing they'll say is, well, what are y'all running up there? How many you have? How many you baptized? There's always a comparison. We want to know, well, how big is it? What are you doing? How many ministries you got? That's a sad ugliness of what God's plan is, because that's not the plan. The plan is for us to be conformed to His image every day. That's God's plan for you. Only you've got to walk through separate ways, different ways. I'm going through things in my life that you're not going to go through. You're going through things in your life that I may never see. So he had the dream. The ugliness of it is he told the boys what the dream is. The ugliness of it is maybe this was something that did not need to be said. A caution for every one of us today. There are truths that are in your life that don't need to be shared. They're truths. You're living them out. But it's nothing anybody else needs to hear. I mentioned President Kennedy, and as growing up as a boy, he was a hero of mine because I'd read the PT 109. It's a top 10 movie for me. I watch it at least once every year. You say, yeah, but wait, don't you know? I know. Don't tell me all that. I know it. But what about these guys? You're going to call these guys your heroes? I mean, we are a fallen people and a fallen race. We're all sinners. And that's what we can't seem to get. When a pastor makes a mistake, I mean, they pull out the guns and the whips and everything, shoot him, kill him, whatever has to happen, because we looked up to him, we held him to a standard, and he failed us, so we're going to cut his throat. And that's the nature of Christianity. You disappointed us, and that's the sad part. But the idea that, hey guys, I want all of you to gather in. I just had a dream, and guess what? All of y'all are going to bow down to me. And don't you like the way my coat fits me? See, what's he doing? He's stirring it up. He's stirring it up. If God is doing a work in you, it's just like you're giving. Jesus made it as clear could be. You let your giving be a secret. No one needs to know what's going on. Even the left hand or the right hand doesn't need to know what's going on. If you're going to do something, give something in my name, let it be in my name. Does anybody need to know it? It does not need to be advertised. If you want to give money for a chair, give money for a chair, but don't put your name on the dumb chair. I was in a church once in Ohio where everything, the chairs up where the preacher sat, the pulpit, everything had a name on it. Meaning what? When you put your name on something, what are you saying? Ownership. Ownership. If one of y'all walks out of here today and you say, somebody parked in my spot, I want you to know something. You ain't got one. We just beat you. You ain't got nothing. Well, I want you to know I gave $700 for that gravel out there. Yeah, and the grass is growing through it. You better get out there and spray it if it belongs to you. When you walk into this church owning it, owning everything, you get what you deserve. We are to understand God has a plan for you. Stay inside of that plan and keep your mouth shut. Joseph, no one needed to know that they're all going to bow down to you. That was the truth for you. Now, there is a special plan for your life. And you won't know it till it's just about all done and all ended. Now, verse 6, we'll have to move a little forward. Verse 18 through 36. This is the longest part. And you know why? Because there are special problems for you. There's a special person inside of you, just like there was Joseph. God has a special plan for you, just like He did Joseph. But there are also special problems. In verse 18. Now when they saw him afar off, this is Joseph coming back, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. Then they said to one another, look, the dreamer's coming. Come therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit. We shall say some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what will become of his dreams. But Reuben heard it, and he delivered. Reuben is the firstborn. Reuben is the firstborn by which all of the firstborn rights would have been publicly declared. But Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, "No, let us not kill him." And Reuben said to him, "Let's don't kill him. Let's shed no blood, but throw him in a deep pit, which is in the wilderness, and do not lay hand on him, that he might deliver him out of their hands and bring him back to his father." So it came to pass, when Joseph had come to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors that was on him. Joseph loses his coat, and he loses the favor of the Father in that coat. That's why Joseph is a picture of who Jesus Christ is. Then they took him and cast him into the pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it, and they sat down to eat a meal. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels bearing spices, palm, myrrh, and on their way to carry them down to Egypt. So Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there?" Judah, "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. These are good brothers." I imagine they had a great Christmas time with their presents to one another. "Come and let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he's our brother and our flesh." And his brothers listened. Then the Midianite traders passed by. So the brothers pulled Joseph up, lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. Then Reuben returned to the pit, and indeed Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his clothes. Why? Because he's the firstborn. He's responsible for all that's going on. He also has to go report to Dad. So he turned to his brothers and said, "The lad is no more. Where shall I go?" And they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the tunic in the blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it near to the father and said, "We have found this. Do you know whether it's your son's or not?" What a dumb question. And he recognized it and said, "It's my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his sons many days. And all of his sons and all of his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, and he said, "For I shall go down to the grave to my son in mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Now the Midianites had sold him to Egypt, to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. There are special problems for you. Verse 18, brothers conspired against him. Verse 21, thrown into the pit. Verse 28, sold as a slave. Chapter 39, accused of rape. Chapter 40, thrown back in prison. He was forsaken by his family. He was forgotten by his friends. He was frustrated in all of his failure. There are special problems for you. All of us deal with problems all of the time. In fact, our bodies. In fact, Paul said that in the last of his days. He said, "My body is wearing out, but my soul isn't, because I'm renewed every day spiritually, but my body is wearing out." And our problems today often are part of the consequences of our life, part of the consequences of decisions we made, bad decisions, or sometimes it's just life, part of God's plan that we're going to go through. One of the hardest things for us to understand as believers is that if you're suffering this, if you're going through it, that it has come through the hand of God, that God is allowing this to happen. I've already heard it today. How could a God allow things to happen like that person that was killed yesterday, and very little discussion about that person who just went to a rally and their family will never be the same and they're dead. And did God cause that? Did God allow that? Did he save President Trump and let this person die? Every time evil comes, every time a problem comes, we look at it and we want an answer. We want an excuse. And that's why when you gather together in a family, and maybe your father, your mother, your wife, your husband is in this situation, and the doctor sits down to talk to the family. Y'all have been there in the little room, and he starts off with medical jargon that is going way over our heads, way too fast, and then he's out the door, and we look, what did he say? And we parse it out. We pretty well figure there's nothing else. Life's about to end. Everything that we go through in life, there are special problems for you, have come through the hand of the Father. I have learned to thank God for leukemia. I have learned to thank God for cancer. You will walk through many things that are going to be sorrowful. And I don't know which one's going to throw you. I don't know. And it's just like at a parade. If there's a horse involved, somebody, before this parade is over, somebody's going to fall off or get bucked off a horse. Horses and parades are notorious for that. Or every time the arena opens up, probably somebody going to slide off the side or off the back. Something happened unexpected, and that's why some of these things happen so fast. Why did that happen? How did it happen? We don't know. But everything that comes to us has come through the hand of God. And you say, I'm not going to accept that. Then these special problems for you are going to always remain a problem for you. Every meal that you take, when Jan and I were praying last night, sliced tomatoes, fresh garden corn, and I'm praying and kind of praying and crying at the same time, thinking about where we are as a country. I just weep, not just over the attempt. It's not that as much as it is just where we are. Even our responses. We are a cold and callous land that just will eat one another alive. But I'm looking at the beautiful, beautiful garden. All you folks bring us this stuff, and we love it. And I'm running a little short on corn, by the way. I mean, I'm not to throw anything negative in there, but come on, people. Beautiful harvest and bounty, and yet tears running down my face. We all have special problems, but until you reach the point that problem becomes the peace in your heart, that God is in control of your life, it's always going to be a problem. Every time we attempt to appease problems, you ever attempt to appease people? The more you attempt to appease someone, the more, okay, I'll make this better, and when I get through making this better, you are really going to like me. No, they won't. They'll be just like the 10 other brothers. It didn't matter what he did. There are special problems for all of it. Now let's wrap it up. We know what he went through. There is a special person with you. Chapter 39. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him. Verse 1, 2, and 3, 3 times. The Lord was with him. The Lord was with him. The Lord was with him. I sent this to the mission team in Brazil this morning. Remember, the Lord is with you. The Lord is with you. The Lord is with you. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. There's a special person with you all the time. Verse 1 through 3, he was with him as a servant. He said he comes and he's taken out of the pit. He's taken out of the prison. He comes to this as a servant. As a servant. There's no greater thing that you can be called in this church than a servant. That's the greatest thing you can be called. If I say to you, you have a servant's heart, it's because I've seen something in you that says, I'm not asking for credit, not asking for glory. I'm just serving. If that's beneath you, you miss the whole point. If that's below you, if you're the person who says we have people for that, if you can't find in your heart to serve, then I'm not sure that you understand the coat that you're wearing of many colors that was provided by Jesus, showing divine favor to you, is a valuable, valuable coat. The first time I was ever on television, my mother came over, and my mom's answer to everything was, we're going to go get something. And it was a 30-minute special on television. I was directing it. I'm in my 20s, do not know what I'm doing, had no business doing it. Anyway, we go down to a men's store in Fort Smith, Arkansas. She said, buy a suit. She bought me a brand new suit. And that suit became, it was an everyday thing. It was the only one that I had. But her answer was, put him in a new suit. That the television will be all good. It'll all be good. It's not what we are wearing on the outside that makes anything good. It's what's on the inside that's understanding that, I have someone with me that's better than what I have on. that's better than what I can put on. The best thing that I could put on. So even Joseph, with your beautiful coat, there's still problems, but you have someone with you as a servant. And not only just as a servant, but also in seduction. You know the story. His wife, Potiphar's wife, had her eye on him, and he was with him in seduction. He's the only man that we know of in the Bible that left his clothes, took off a running. That's why Paul told Timothy, flee these youthful lusts. Only way you win against seduction is get out of there. Ought to be a lesson for every one of us. He was with him in seduction even. Joseph found favor in his sight. And so that's why he couldn't believe, and that's why he only got prison. I think that Potiphar knew all along what his wife was like. And he was with him, chapter 39, verse 21. He was with him. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. He was with him in his suffering. God has turned his tragedy, his temptation, his torment, and his troubles into triumph. And that's why, my friend, there is someone special inside of you. That's why God has a special plan for you. That's why there are special problems unique to you that none of us will understand. And that's why there is someone special with you everywhere you go. If you're looking for a perfect church to hang your hat on, you need to move right on down the road. Because I've been with these people for 5 years and 2 Sundays now. And they ain't perfect. And they have an imperfect pastor and imperfect workers here. But that can never be our goal or our aim. But if you're looking for a place where you can serve, you can be in missions, you can be in the dirt, or you can be in the cool, but you can serve, you can cook the meals, you can carry the trash out. You can help boys and girls come to Jesus Christ in camps and VBSs and serve, and you can put your money in. This is the place for you. This is a place by which you can serve. All of us, special, unique, yes. All of us problems, yes. All of us has a plan that we want to see implemented in your life. We want to see that. The only reason that I stay young enough in mind and heart is these boys and girls, I want to see them come to fruition in God's plan in their life. Mine's on the backside. I understand that. I don't know if you saw it a while ago, but Bo jumped from right here to the bottom step, and it made me limp even harder. It hurt me to watch him jump off of that. I want to see the jump of the Spirit for these boys and girls and the children that are coming behind us. I know you do too. Let's stand together. Every one of you, something special within you. Every one of you, special problems that you're aching with right now in your body, the mind, the soul, the heart. God has a special plan for you, but what is it? Should I be a teacher? Should I be a preacher? Should I be a? I don't know. That's between you and the Holy Spirit guiding and leading you and directing you. But I do want you to know that there is a special person with you. His name is Jesus. This coat came back to Joseph. We didn't get to the end of the story, and we'll hear more next week. When the 10 same brothers that put him in the pit walk before him and do not even recognize who he is. Oh, God has a special moment. God has a special moment. You know, in this church, people have come from every church that I've ever served in to be here, some. And that makes us just thrilled that we can go back to all these places, and we've gone to most of them. But I'm telling you, I'm here for you. You are here for me. Our past is back there. It's lovely. Many of you have special memories of other places and other churches and other pastors, but you better live right now. You better make the difference right now. Oh, I've got so many stories. In fact, a deacon texted me last night. He said, where were we on that mission field? And Apodaca, where was this at, that medical clinic? And we started texting back and forth about those great memories. But I do not feed from those memories. I feed from what God wants to do right here, right now. It's the same with you. Well, I've been hurt. People have hurt me. They've hurt my feelings, and they've hurt my soul. I was wounded. I've been abused. I've been hit. I've been subjugated down by others and beat down low. I understand that. But rise up, because there's something special in you. You're going to have to bear that off and come to Jesus Christ fresh and anew today. Our Father, bless us now.